That's In From The Side, ref.
Welcome back to In From The Side. Another week, another show. I'm here with my co-host, a man who, according to sources, can only be put to sleep when his wife sings Nkosi Sikelele to him when he goes to bed.
Correct.
Matthew Rhodes. Matt, good to see you, buddy.
How's it, bud?
Yeah? Nice.
You good?
Nice. I'm excited about this one.
Mate, my wife is, she's got to wear the Springbok rugby jersey as well at the same time.
Otherwise, you can't sleep.
Yeah.
No, true story.
Lullabies, bro. Lullabies.
Good to see you, bro.
Thanks, bro.
It's been a while. Has it?
It has.
We're continuing with our series of picking our Mount Rushmore of every single position in the rugby team, because we love talking about rugby, right? What's the point of picking one Mount Rushmore of just 4 players? Let's just do it for every single position, and then we get to talk about some good players, we get to show some highlights, and we do this every single week, which is nice.
Exactly, and we get some stick for it as well. We picked 15 down to 10 so far. And we've taken a bit of heat along the way for leaving out a couple of names, and people are suggesting that there are names that we should have included, and we're crazy to have included some of the names, especially me, some of the names that I've gone with. And today's going to be no different. We got 4 names that we've got to pick, and this is the thing I think that I find the hardest, is that there is so many great players
the list is long
throughout history in each position that it's hard to kind of cherry pick 4. Some elevate themselves above the crowd. Our last show we did fly halves, and there were 2 incredible, 3 for me standouts that just kind of wrote themselves onto the mountain. But you know, other people have difference of opinion, and it's all subjective, and it's our opinion versus, not so much versus yours, but what we want to do is we want to hear your opinions, tell us where we've gone wrong, bring the banter. We love it. It also helps to drive the algorithm.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, theoretically, if it's subjective, you can't be wrong. So, because everyone will have a different opinion. So, talking about those opinions, Matt, Mount Rushmore Scrumhalves. Let's get into it.
The 4 Titans of the 9 jersey.
For me, like I said, oddly enough, I had 4 names in my mind, and then when I did the research, I defaulted back to those 4 names.
Really?
So it wasn't that difficult for me. But I'm curious to hear who the first face on the side of your mountain is.
Mate, these are legendary playmakers, fearless defenders, and leaders in their areas. And you need a good 9 to link the forwards and the backs. And I think none did that better than George Gregan.
Okay.
So Georgie Gregan for me, the Wallabies heartbeat, 139 caps, 59 as captain. Rugby World Cup winner in 2009, Tri-Nations winner in 2001, Bledisloe Cup winner in 94, 98, 99, 2001 and 2. He also won the Super Rugby title in 2001 and 2004 with the Brumbies. Georgie inducted into the IRB Hall of Fame in 2013, and also very, very famous throughout the world for that tackle on Jeff Wilson.
Such a great memory.
Such a great memory. And anyone who grew up in South Africa would know, I think it was the Konica Minolta advert, where it was on TV like day in and day out on Supersport. You'd see it on Mnet or Supersport. For me, he was the epitome of what a 9 was. He was great at the breakdown, connected the back line. He was, in the refs' faces, not in an arrogant way, but he had a bit of arrogance about him,
which you need in a 9.
Which you need in a 9.
You need that.
Epitomized by his comment of 4 more years, boys.
4 more years.
4 more years, boys. Yeah, unbelievable. Like he had character, and he had steel, grit, and determination. And his game management and his leadership across a record-breaking career for me was outstanding. Gregan and Stephen Larkham also hold the all-time record for test appearances by a halfback partnership with 79 appearances.
Yeah, amazing.
That connection between the 2 of them. Larkham wasn't on my Mount Rushmore for fly halves, but he was close. Like I had him in consideration, and for my 4th pick, it was between him, Neil Jenkins, Mornay Steyn, and 1 or 2 others. But that combination was everything about what the the Brumbies and the Wallabies were, and why they were so good, and ultimately why they won the World Cup when they did. So,
no, love it. Georgie Gregan's an absolute legend.
Yeah, he's up there for me.
I love him, and I love the sledging. I love the comments.
Yeah.
There's a great one. You talk about the 4 more years. There's another one that I heard about the other day, I think when I watched the Russie's podcast, where I think he was playing for the Brumbies. Maybe it was a test that he played for Australia, and a lot of his team were talking to the ref, and like he was in the ref's ear. The ref paused the game. He called Gregan over. He said, "Listen, there's too many refs on the field. I'm the ref. There's too many refs on the field." And George Gregan tunes him. "Yeah, but you're not even in the top 5, mate." It's like, do your job and we'll keep quiet. And I just thought that's one of the best comments ever. But as a player, again, game breaker. Australia were known for that phase play, right? You had Finnegan and Cobain and these guys just hitting it up. Kefu just hitting it up, and Gregan was he kept it going. He was that core of that game plan where he just kept feeding the ball to these big runners. Ian McIntosh famously called it direct rugby, but Australia played a very similar style under Rod McQueen, and Gregan he championed that style of play, and they did it at the Brumbies very successfully as well, like you say. One Super Rugby. I love George Gregan, fantastic player. I love him up there.
Owen Finnegan round the back.
The vision,
the innovation there, outstanding. But then, as you say, you've got to play that link game and make the right decisions at the right times to not give it to a forward, to get it out wide.
Yeah,
and I think he did that exceptionally well. So, there's stands named after him, albeit he shares it with Larkin, but. For me, he was just, when I was growing up, he was everything that 9 should be.
And we had a golden era in the 90s, where we were both teenagers. I loved watching like Super Rugby, the Tri-Nations, because you had Gregan playing for the Aussies, Justin Marshall playing for the All Blacks, and US playing for the Springboks. And those 3 were like the top 3 Scrumhalves on the planet, and to see them week in, week out play against each other I loved it.
It was a joy.
I loved it.
It was a joy, yeah.
And sometimes they were on top, sometimes we were on top, and it was fantastic. But Gregan, top player, can't fault you.
Nice. Who'd you go?
I didn't pick him. He didn't make he would have been like Hugo Porta last week. Would have been number 5 on my list. But I did pick another player from the Southern Hemisphere. I had to go with Aaron Smith.
Okay.
Recently retired, All Black legend, played over 100 tests. He had the most beautiful pass, like the quickest pass. And I often think about the players that played outside of him, like Carter, Moanga, Barrett. As good as they were, a lot of what they could do came off that speed of the pass that came from Aaron Smith. He didn't cock the ball when he passed off the deck. He didn't do the sideways run that I know that irritates you. Like he just passed off the deck and it was straight.
Get the ball
always on point
into the 10's hands.
I think he always bought his fly-offs
a few seconds
to make the right decisions on the field. Like he made it easy for the fly-offs to perform well.
Sure, they had the Kiwis have had an outstanding pack as well, and a lot of the time they've got front foot ball. They've got to go forward, but if your fly half is running onto the ball and their speed of delivery is giving them a second or 2 extra, and you've got fly halves like Dan Carter or Bowden Barrett with that much space, and it's being created by your 9, it just puts them into a position of strength.
Yeah.
And they can either make better decisions, or they can swing it out wide and exploit space. Like it all stems from the 9 getting the ball out wide.
Yeah, but it's not just the speed of his passing; it's the speed of his decision making.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the players that I have on my list, they made the right decisions on the field. Like he knew when to snipe around the fringes when there was space around the ruck. Scored a lot of tries around the ruck. He once famously did that against us. Stepped Yanni du Plessis, scored a great try. He knew when to kick. He had a decent kicking game. Maybe not a Fourie de Pre level kicking game, but he did what needed to be done. Very tenacious in defence, very gutsy player, not a big guy.
Yeah.
He's easily, there's a lot of New Zealand Scrumhalves that we're going to talk about, but without a doubt, he's the greatest New Zealand halfback of all time. And I had to get him on my Mount Rushmore.
He's on my list as well. He was,
nice.
Yeah, so for me, he was the All Blacks bottom maestro. So 125 caps. I think he's second to Bodie.
Yes.
For All Black
backline player.
Yeah. So 125 caps. He won the World Cup in 2015. 7 rugby championships. He was also Super Rugby champ with the Highlanders as well, which again, he was very influential in their win.
And that was the only Super Rugby win ever.
Their only win. And so he had a great hand to play in that. Like you said, lightning quick pass, elite decision making, and he was a constant threat. So hard to leave him off. And he's on my mountain too.
You can't. Okay, it's going to be interesting to see who your last 2 picks is going to be. But the second player on my list, let's go north to the Northern Hemisphere. I spoke about Barry John last week and what a great player he was. This guy is known all across the world as probably the greatest player of the previous century. There's a statue of him in Cardiff, and it's got to be Sir Gareth Edwards. Absolutely unbelievable player. Like one of the most naturally gifted players. The types of tries he scored in an era where you didn't see a lot of flashy play was always these these soft, muddy, wet fields that the Six Nations or the Five Nations at that time was played in. And Gareth Edwards just did stuff that was miraculous. He famously scored the most famous try of all time for the Barbarians against the All Blacks in 1973. But there was some other tries that I remember, one for Wales that he ran pretty much from his own goal line, kicked the ball ahead against Scotland, dived over in the corner. He stood up and his whole face was just mud. It was like he dived into a pig pen. But he scored the try, and he scored many, many great tries. An absolute genius. I think in Welsh rugby, I don't think there's a bigger player than he was. A lot of people will rate a lot of players from the 70s, but you ask any Welshman, 9 out of 10 will say Gareth Edwards is our greatest player. And I think to this day, with the skill set that he had in a pro game, he would have been elite. He would have been fantastic. Again, like Nas that I spoke about last week, he would have adjusted his game to adapt to the pro game. I think in any era, he would have been the standout player. And in the 70s, as good as Sid Going was, as good as Dawie de Villiers was, there's not a player on the planet that came close to Gareth Edwards. He was unplayable for over a decade.
Fair, and I understand why he's up on your Mount Rushmore. This is the Oracle, Rugby Oracle. He's got the access. What did you say? 70 terabytes?
60 terabytes.
60 terabytes.
Just over 10,000 rugby videos. Yeah.
60 terabytes of rugby. So when your man does a deep dive, he does a deep dive. But that being said, like again, all the forums talked, highly of Gareth Edwards, obviously. I didn't have that kind of connection to him, and I didn't have 60 terabytes of footage to go back through. So for me, I had to look at the people that had an impact on my rugby viewing, and the ones that had stood up for me, and I couldn't leave off Fourie du Preez. Like you mentioned his name before, 76 caps, 80 points, 16 tries. So not really a massive points tally, but 16 tries, tactical genius, and he was a serial winner. So 1 Rugby World Cup, 3 Super Rugby, and 3 Currie Cups, 2 Tri-Nations, 2009 Lions Series winner as well. He was South African Player of the Year, obviously not IRB Player of the Year, but South African Player of the Year 2006 and 2009, but he was an IRB nominee. And he was just always, again, we talked about this before, and me including Andre Pollard as one of my 10 on my Mount Rushmore for last week. Fourie du Preez was always calm under pressure. Like he was just precise with the boots, and defensively he was unmatched as well. So like for me, he epitomized again, like Regan, everything that a true solid 9 should be. And he created such front foot ball as well by making the right decision. So again, very Gregan-like in that sense.
He's on my Mount Rushmore, obviously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean that's not even a surprise, mate. These last 2 on my list won't be a surprise to anyone that knows me. Fourie du Preez it's always debatable between him and the other guy who I'm going to get to about who the greatest Springbok Scrumhalf is. But in his era, I don't think people appreciate how good Fourie du Preez was. Maybe in 10 or 15 years' time when we're all a lot older. But, he's as old as we are. We come from the same generation. And in my 20s and 30s, I've never seen anyone play as well as he did.
Mate, that Affy schoolboy team that he was in, And some players.
No, they had some players. Wynand Willeftier played with him and a couple of other guys. No, they were a really, really good team. But his decision making, like I haven't seen, maybe there's an argument for a Nas that could read a game as well as Friede Pre did. Like tactically, he was perfect. I can't think of one weakness in his game. Defensively, he was strong.
Yeah.
A lot of people in South Africa get frustrated with a kicking game, but a kicking game off the base of the ruck works if you make your kicks and if you make it contestable.
Yeah.
And it comes down to how accurately a Scrumhalf puts those up and unders from the base of a ruck. And he was pinpoint. Like the amount of times that Jean de Villiers, when he played wing before he moved to centre, and that Banner scored tries from those kicks, there were just too many to mention. His kicking off the base of the ruck was brilliant. His long-range kicking was brilliant. He often, could put the team in the right position on the field. Snipe around the fringes, like a US, like a Byron Callagher, like a Justin Marshall. If he saw the space, he would take it. He scored a couple of great tries. And like you say, just a serial winner. The one thing that bugs me to this day, Matt, is that he didn't win the IRB World Player of the Year in 2009.
Yeah.
He should have won it in 2009. Richie McCaw was injured for a big part of that season. We beat the All Blacks 3-0. Friede Pre in that year was the greatest player on the planet, and he should have won it. And I don't know why they didn't give it to him. But like you say, to this day, even if you listen to interviews now when he does the odd thing on TV or on YouTube, does a podcast, he's just so chill and so calm. Nothing ever got to him.
Yeah.
And I think it's his ability to deal with that pressure that just made him such a solid player, because nothing flustered him. He always made the right decisions and always played the perfect game.
But we talked about this last week as well. There's certain players that make other players calm and to have the right composure, especially in clutch moments. And you look to those players because they stand out and they lead. And that henchman between the forwards and the backs is so critical. And if you've got someone who's got a cool head on them, you talked about Aaron Smith before, he was very much like that. Friede Pre just emulated that. And so when you've got a good 10 coming onto the ball and Friede Pre is making the right decisions at the right time, you've got your forwards. It's about having faith in the player next to you. And I think the forwards and the backs, they all trusted him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just being a Bulls fan, watching rugby in the late 2000s was just so much fun, because the Bulls won pretty much everything. Won Super Rugby 3 times. South Africa was on top form, won the Tri Nations, won the World Cup, won the British and Irish Lions series. And he was just a core part of all those teams, like the absolute perfect player. And if you listen to guys like Mark Keohane today, he says Friede Pre is still the greatest Scrumhalf ever, and Dupont doesn't hold a candle, which I tend to agree with.
And I agree with as well. But I think we talked about his kicking and his kicking game being so supreme. For my mind, I don't think I've seen anyone else come close except for Conor Murray.
Yeah.
So Conor Murray, tactical maestro as well, in my opinion, one of the best box kickers. But other than that, like you say, I haven't seen too many people who are an exponent of the box kick to that effect.
Not with that accuracy.
No.
Like he just weights it perfectly so that the wing chasing can hit it at pace. It was a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
I love the kicking game.
Nice.
Okay, so I went Aaron Smith, Friede Pre, Gareth Edwards. Who did you go? You went Friede Pre, George Gregan.
George Gregan, Friede Pre.
And who's next on your list?
Aaron Smith. And then this one. So again, backwards and forwards. I think for me, the gold standard is Rugby World Cups. And you can't look too much further than Faf de Klerk, because obviously he's got 2 World Cups. But I was looking through, and actually Fafi's not on my, even with his long flowing locks, he would be great on my Mount Rushmore. But looking down the line, Faf de Klerk, Rowan Pienaar from South Africa, New Zealand, we talked about Justin Marshall and maybe even TJ Perinara, because we've got Aaron Smith already there. Australia had Will Guinea, Nick Farr-Jones, I was looking at, and England, Matt Dawson, Ben Youngs, maybe even Danny Kerr. Then you get to France, and I picked Dimitri Yashvili over Antoine Dupont in my best ever pro era team for France. And again, he was top of my list. Fabien Galtier, maybe Conor Murray for Ireland, Peter Stringer. We talked about Wales. You've gone Gareth Edwards, but Mike Phillips, Rob Howley, Dwayne Peel, Rhys Webb, maybe. And then Scotland, Greg Laidlaw, Brian Redpath, Mike Blair, Argentina, Augustin Pichot. Like, I loved Augustin Pichot.
Gus was brilliant.
The way, with his socks down low, he was so passionate. He was such a great Argentinian player. But for me, I couldn't get past Joost. So
Matt, that is the right answer.
That is the right answer. So we talked about it before in previous shows. He's not, like, he frustrated me as a supporter sometimes, because as much as he would dart around and he would he always kind of would look up, and we've talked about how it's my preference. I want the ball in the fly-off hands, and I want the boys running on, and I want us to exploit the space so that we can score in the corner, right? But there would just be times where he would look up one too many times for me, and I would be like, just get the ball out, right? And so maybe I was looking at him previously with that kind of negative perspective before, but as I did the deep dive this time round, looking into the nines, he was just a physical freak with flair. Like 89 caps, and then when you look at it, and this is where I'm going to eat my humble pie, 38 tries.
At Scrumhalf. 38
tries at Scrumhalf. So my man, I take it all back. You looking up, you scored those tries from looking for the opportunities. Obviously, 1995 Rugby World Cup winner, made that tackle on Jonah Lomu.
Head on, mate.
Head on.
Around the ankles.
Running in front, getting square. Jonah coming down. He was towering for a scrum-half. Like, he was strong.
He was big. At the time, he was a really big player. Yeah.
And he was fearless, aggressive. He was iconic. He's a national hero. I know he's one of your heroes. Probably going to agree with me on this one. But just like, as I say, his performance in tackling Lomu is folklore. 38 tries. When I looked at that, you know, I as I say, I had to eat some humble pie and include him on my Mount Rushmore.
No, I'm glad you did, because he didn't make my list. I went to Ricky January.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Talking shit, Matt. No, Joost is the obvious answer.
Obvious answer. It was the right answer.
Again, childhood hero of mine. The Bulls went through 7 lean years in the 90s. We didn't win the Currie Cup for 7 years until Joost lifted it in 1998. It's still in one of the best finals against Western Province at Loftus. I was there with my dad. It was one of the best days of my life. And I just have the list of memories that I have of Joost impressing me. It's just too long to mention. And if we have to do all his highlights in this video, it will never end. But I'll pick a couple of great ones. You know, I talk about Cullen and Gerber and these guys scoring tries that no one else would. Joost scored out of those 38 tries, made tries that no other player, let alone a scrum-half, would have scored. There's one very specific try scored against England in 95 at Twickenham after we won the World Cup, where he just, from a line out, darted around the blind side, ran on the touchline, beat 2 defenders, chipped over Carling, collected the ball, scored in the corner. It's just, it's freaky stuff that he did. There was another great chip and chase that he scored against New South Wales in 93 in the old Super 10 for the Bulls, where, again, they thought they were going to catch the ball. He just came through like lightning, caught it, scored a bunch of match winners. Like, you're right, he did look for space at the base of a ruck, but that's why, because he backed himself to go and make the yards. I think when I really knew he was going to be an all-time great was against Scotland in 94. He scored a double, and it was one of the greatest doubles ever. The first one, he just ran down the blind side. They didn't even think, because who just runs on the blind side from a scrum? No one did it. Joost did it, scored in the corner. The second one, he beat like 3-4 defenders, ducked underneath the tackle, stepped Gavin Hastings, scored under the post. I'm going to show it because those were 2 great tries. But again, too many memories. Springbok captain in 10 tests.
Won the Tri-Nations as captain as well.
I don't think he was captain when we won the Tri-Nations. Gary Teichmann was captain, but he was definitely part of that leadership team.
I thought I read that he was captain in one winning Tri-Nations, but I stand corrected.
Well, we beat Australia at Newlands in 1999 when he was captain, but that was the only year that he was Springbok captain until two or three tests in the World Cup in 2003. So tell ChatGPT he needs
my team of researchers getting fired on Monday.
ChatGPT, the Oracle says that's not accurate. Yeah. No, but Joost, I can talk about him the whole day. I think I often say this, like, Friede Pre for me was the perfect scrum-half Joost van der Westhuizen for me was the perfect rugby player. I think as a rugby player in general, he often played on the wing. For the Bulls, they picked him on the wing a couple of times to try and play against Lomu in the Super 12 in 1996. So, Fourie du Preez had one position. Joost, as a player, I think was fantastic. Yeah, again, just a legend. I don't know what else to say, mate.
Mate,
he's up there.
You've said it.
He's two South Africans, and I called you biased in the previous show. But again, looking at that list, I think most people outside of South Africa will agree with Joost and Fourie du Preez up there.
Yeah. And again, for me, Georgie Gregan had such an impact from a 9. And we both agree on Aaron Smith. So 4 Southern Hemisphere for me. You've gone 1 Northern Hemisphere. And as I say, it was hard to leave off some of the names. Matt Dawson for me, 2003 Rugby World Cup hero.
Yeah, good player.
Also electric around the base, savvy tactician. He was a Lions regular, and he was an underrated leader as well. So I was looking at him, but for me, he couldn't pip Joost.
No, he couldn't. And there's a couple of other guys who spoke about Gus Pichot. Nick Farr-Jones, great player, World Cup winning captain in 91. So good with liner. Really, really great combo. Ken Catchpole played for Australia in the 60s and 70s, I think. Fantastic player. Will Genia,
110 tests, 2 rugby championship titles, Super Rugby champ. Man had vision, pace, leadership all in one.
Yeah. We spoke about Conor Murray, Peter Stringer, the Irish contingent, Pierre Barbezier. I mean, you spoke about Galtier. Do we want to talk about DuPont? Do you think he deserves to be on this list? A lot of people out there will say, how can you not pick DuPont? He's the GOAT, he's the best. I don't think he holds a candle to either of our Mount Rushmores. Not yet.
It's
like he's halfway through his career. We can have this conversation when he retires, but as good as he is, I wouldn't even put him ahead of Gregan or anyone that I don't even have on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, it's a tough one because, again, there's so many people that say Anton DuPont, arguably the best of the modern era. Is your power, pace, poise. But again, is he someone that will be a future legend? Not right now. I think somewhere along like 60 caps, 60 points or something like that. So
he is good. I want to give him credit. He is arguably, I think, with Peter Stephen Colby, probably the 3 best players on the planet right now.
Sure.
I just don't think he's achieved as much in rugby as any one of these players on our Mount Rushmores. And for me, just building that legend is still going to take some time. We can reassess this in 5 years when he's retired.
Gregan, Van der Westhuizen, du Preez, Smith, all World Cup winners. They've all got a William Webb Ellis trophy. Antoine DuPont does not.
Well,
so,
and Australia again, in 2027, the way France is going.
Sure, fair play.
But that'll put him up there.
Sure. Yeah. And like we can talk about that in the future, but at the moment, that trophy cabinet is dry. And you look at...
and it's dry for Toulouse this year.
Oh,
so, I mean,
unlucky.
That's not going well.
Those boys, they lost recently. But Faf de Klerk, two World Cup trophies. And when you look at that, and he was very instrumental in 2019 in our win. I think
he had a bigger impact than
bigger
19,
impact then.
I think so.
Yeah. But you look at that, for me, it's the gold standard. Rugby World Cup win, and he's got 2 of them. He's, as I say, there's only 40 odd players in history to have won it twice. 24 of them South African. He's one of them.
Yeah, there's another double World Cup winner, Cobus Reinach.
Yeah, which we didn't even talk about.
He's part of the conversation. He's a fantastic player.
100%.
Fantastic player.
And yet, Fafi against Aaron Smith, Fourie du Preez, Joost, George Gregan, or Gareth Edwards.
As good as he is, I just don't think he's there. But he is a fantastic player. But again, these lists are so long, Matt. I looked at players from the amateur era. Sid Going, famous bald head with the sideburns, fantastic player. A lot of New Zealanders will say, put him up there in front of Aaron Smith. That's how highly he's rated. Gary Armstrong, Byron Callagher, Roy Laidlaw, who played in the 80s for Scotland. Then from South Africa, David de Villiers, Springbok captain against that famous All Black team of 1970. And then one guy we have to just quickly chat about is Donnie Craven. Obviously, just because he played in the 30s, there's not a lot of footage of him playing. But when we talk about legends, again, he was bigger than the game. He became Mr. Rugby in South Africa. He was a player. He was a captain. He was an administrator. He was a coach. He was president of the South African Rugby Board. He was on the IRB Council. He was the guy who kept rugby alive between South Africa and other nations in a time where the whole world saw us as the enemy and no one wanted to play against us. He kept relationships going and he made a lot of tours happen. And I think I will forever have a soft spot for Doc. By all accounts, he was a fantastic player. I gave you the stat the other day. I think he played number 8, Scrumhalf and fly-off for the Springboks.
He just liked that particular area of the field.
Yeah, and he was, for many years before the All Blacks came to South Africa and beat us in 96, the joke was always, what is the greatest team to ever leave New Zealand's shores? It's the 1937 Springboks. Because we were the first team to beat them in New Zealand in a series, and Donnie Craven was part of that team. So he has to be part of the conversation just because of his legend
status
and his status as a man within rugby. Maybe not because of his playing, but... some other guys, Devon Sarfontaine, he was decent in the 80s. Rob Howley, Mike Phillips, Robert Jones, Terry Holmes, a couple of Welsh guys. That's part of the conversation, but I think we nailed it on this one.
It was hard for me, again, to overlook Justin Marshall from New Zealand. Hard as nails, 81 caps, 24 tries as well. And as you said, there was a golden era where he and US were up against each other so often. Just an unbelievable player and a great commentator now. But I think Aaron Smith is the better Kiwi.
Yeah.
From that sense, in terms of the 9 position.
I think so. Absolutely. Love it, Matt. Great list, great Mount Rushmore. Let's hear what the folks out there have to say. As always, please remember to leave your comments in the comment section. Give us a like, give us a subscriber. Click the notification button at the bottom of the video to get notified every week when we launch new videos. Go and follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all of the social medias. We'd love to hear from you, and we're going to do this again next week.
Bring the banter.
Next week we're going into the forwards. And loose forward. Oh, man. Mate, loose forward's going to be difficult, but we're going to start with number 8 in our next show. I'm looking forward to it.
It's so difficult. This is such a fun thing that we're doing, going through each position and picking our 4, but there's been some, it's so tough. You usually get 1 or 2 people, those names write themselves on, and then you get to the 3rd and it's like, yeah, definitely I'll include. And then you're thinking, I've got to pick 1 from this extensive list of outstanding greats. That's the difficult part for me.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Next week.
It's not getting easier.
4x8.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Please tune in. Thank you for all your support. We'll see you again next week.